right, let me bring in Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host. You can see his show on Peacock every morning, Monday through Friday. Let me start there, Mike. Out of those quarterbacks, which team should be moving on?
Well, I think without question, it's the 49ers from Jimmy Garoppolo. He's missed 23 games over the past 3 seasons. He's got a $25 million compensation package this year. And I think back to the playoff run in 2019, he freaked out Kyle Shanahan in the game against the Vikings, throwing 3 balls that could have been intercepted by Eric Kendricks. One of them was. That's when they shifted to Bob Greasy mode for the rest of the postseason, at least until the Super Bowl, and had him just hand the ball off to that great stable of running backs they have, and also receivers who can run the football. But I think they'd be far better off if they upgraded at the quarterback position and would be a Super Bowl contender, if not a Super Bowl favorite, with a better quarterback.
Oh, do they have plans on doing that?
Well, they're keeping their cards close to the vest. Right now, because of the cap consequences of trading or cutting Jimmy Garoppolo, it would not be a significant blow to their overall structure for other contracts and other players. I think they just need to find a better quarterback before they make a move on Jimmy G. I don't think they trade him because I don't think anybody wants to pay him $25 million for next year. I think they will look for somebody better, and if they find somebody better, they'll go get that person, maybe try to trade him, ultimately potentially just cut him when you can't find someone else to take on that commitment, all because of the inability to stay healthy, Dan.
Does it make sense for the Steelers to bring Ben back because it's money-based, that, hey, we'll have you come back, but only if you're going to play at a reasonable salary here? Or does it make more sense to be moving on to start with whatever, the new era, next generation is with this team?
Dan, my understanding is that this is not about trying to pay Ben Roethlisberger less than what he's due to make this year. Now that they're at the point where they've decided they want to continue this relationship, you have to take his contract, 1 year left, $41.25 million cap charge for this year. $22.25 million is counting against the cap no matter what they do. If he retires, if he's cut, if he restructures his contract, that $22.25 is going nowhere. The question is, with the 19 he's due to make this year, what do you do to shrink the cap charge this year, push some of those dollars into future years? It's very easy to do. It should only take an hour. That part of it is easy. And now that they're at the point where that's the next step, assuming the Steelers are willing to pay him $19 million for this year, it's something that literally could be done in an hour. I don't know why it's taken so long to get to this point. I think some of it was the Steelers asking themselves, are we going to be good enough this year to justify one more year with Big Ben? And I think from his perspective, he has to look at it and say, is the team going to be good enough for me to give it one more run? I don't think this is quite 2005 Jerome Bettis, where just that close away from the Super Bowl, let's try to do it one last time and walk off into the sunset with a trophy. I really do believe, and I know I may eat these words later in the year, I think come November and December, both sides are going to regret this one more year. This feels like Brett Favre in 2010. I think both sides would be better off moving on.
Has anybody seen Deshaun Watson?
I don't. I think there was a photo of him like in Miami or something. He's really handling this in a quiet, private, and discreet way. The Texans know where he's coming from. He's yet to go public. I suggested last week that at some point he may have to go public to put pressure on the Texans to do something. He's making it too easy for them to just hang up the phone whenever anyone calls with an offer and just take the position that they believe at some point he's going to change his mind about not wanting to be there. And there was a great item in The Athletic last week about this situation, how it got to this point. And one of the comments about his nature, he's very stoic by design. He was inspired by his mother's cancer fight, that she handled everything very, very even keeled. And I think that's who he is. He doesn't want to have to go public. He doesn't want to have to throw grenades at the Texans in an interview or somewhere else. He wants them to figure out on their own what their best move is, and we'll see if they do.
Yeah, you start to wonder if you're Deshaun Watson and you go, okay, I'm going to go to a team that I might deplete their roster or their future roster. Do I want to go to Carolina? And all of a sudden I'm going to, it's a lateral move. Now I get out from underneath whatever he's bothered by with the Texans, but it's not like he's going to go to a place where they're going to go, hey, add water and stir. We're ready to challenge for a championship here.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, the Herschel Walker type trade, you end up being the guy who gets traded to the team that doesn't have any first round draft picks for the next 3 years, or second or third, or give up this guy and that guy. The greater the package to get Deshaun Watson, the harder it is for that team where he lands to compete. And that's part of the challenge in finding the right team here. The Texans, if they're going to trade him, they're going to want maximum compensation. Before Deshaun Watson waives his no trade clause, he's going to want to feel like he's not jumping from one bad situation into another.
If you were going to handicap this, give me the teams in order.
Well, I really think what's going to happen is the Texans aren't going to entertain offers, and the teams that would be there right now are going to begin to scatter as they make other plans. See, that's the problem with not realizing your best move is to get all interested teams to the table now and play them against each other.
Like Detroit did with Stafford.
Exactly. Now, here's the time. Let's go. Let's do this now. Because if they don't, and you decide to do it in August when he doesn't show up, and then you realize, oh, he was serious about that. Yeah, he was. Well, how many teams are you going to have in August, September, October? Trade deadline. That's what Dwayne Brown did 4 years ago. He held out. He wanted to be traded. They said, no, 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 no. He finally shows up. And then they trade him to the Seahawks, and they don't get nearly as much as they would have gotten if they just would have done it back in March or April. Dan, look, the only way I can make sense of this, because look at all the changes the Texans are making. The new culture, firing this person, doesn't fit the culture. You got a franchise quarterback who says, I don't want to be part of the culture. Well, then why don't you trade him? I keep going back to the catchphrase that the late Bob McNair gave the NFL during the anthem controversy, the founder of the Texans: we can't have the inmates running the prison. I feel like that's the attitude that's being sent and directed at Deshaun Watson as a message to him and all the rest of the players. You guys just work here. We can't have the inmates running the prison. We decide who stays. We decide who gets traded. We decide who gets what they want. You don't make that decision. That's the only way any of this makes sense to me.
Yeah, I thought Wentz would be traded, but I didn't think Deshaun Watson would be traded. But if they're not, I don't know who is making it public that they're not taking offers. It feels like the Texans might be telling the media, hey, we're not taking offers, so it gets out that, teams can still, hey, we haven't heard the offer. We haven't heard the offer that we want yet.
Yeah, I mean, your best leverage, think about it. Somebody shows up at your door and wants to buy your house. Your best leverage is I ain't selling. Well, then the offer goes up. I really want this house. Well, I'm not selling. Offer goes up. I really want this house. I'm not selling. If you can sell that, you get more. The Eagles weren't in a position to sell that because it was obvious the Eagles were going to move on from Carson Wentz. With the Texans, even though it seems dumb that they wouldn't do this thing and get the best offer they can now, if they can make people think they really are committed to holding on to Deshaun Watson, maybe what happens is somebody gets a little desperate, and when they're at that pivot point where they either have to go get Deshaun Watson or move on to plan B, instead of moving on to plan B, they throw something else onto the pile, and the Texans come out of it even better. When Nick Caserio addressed the issue during the press conference that introduced their new coach, David Culley, I didn't read Caserio as being line in the sand, no way in hell. I interpreted some things he said as meaning that they were going to realize that it's in their best interest to take the best package. Now, that assumes he's got the authority to convince anyone there to do it. You never know what Cal McNair, as influenced by Jack Easterby, is going to do.
Talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk. You can see the show every morning, Monday through Friday, along with Chris Sims. I also wondered about this with Dak Prescott, that Jerry Jones could have stumbled into a situation that might benefit him, and that is, hey, I tag him one more time at $37 million, and he's coming back from an injury. If it doesn't go well, I get out from underneath this. Now, if it does go well, then we sign him to a long-term deal, because I don't think you want to tag him at $50 million or $52 million. So it could either be really, really good for Dallas, or it could be really, really bad. So give me Jerry Jones' strategy through all of this.
Well, the strategy has been wait for Dak Prescott to finally realize that he should do a team-friendly deal. That strategy has not been effective. And the more they wait, the more the price goes up. Because think about this scenario, Dan. One more year, $37.68 million. First of all, the cap's going down this year. This is not the year to have $37.68 million in cap dollars tied to one player. But let's say that works and he's healthy and you want to keep him. The problem is when you go to sign him to a long-term deal next year, he's got all the leverage because the only way to keep him from the open market is to use the franchise tag again at a 44% raise, $54.25 million. He's getting to the open market next year if you don't sign him to a long-term contract this year. And, there's been this lingering question, what is Dak Prescott really worth? We don't know what he's really worth. Yeah, because the Cowboys won't let him go to the open market. The entire franchise tag, they've tried to spin it as it's some sort of an honor. That's BS. Yeah. This is a device that the teams have to keep players from getting fair market value because they don't get to find out what other teams will pay. Next year, if they don't do a long-term deal now, Dak Prescott gets to find out what other teams would pay.
But why don't they just let him go to market? If somebody wants to sign him, you get 2 first-round picks.
Well, and they crossed this bridge last year, Dan. All they had to do was use the non-exclusive franchise tag. It would have been $27 million, $26 million, something like that, instead of 31.4. It was 31.4 because they used the exclusive tag. It's a higher price for most positions, especially it is for quarterback. The way the formula is different, and it seals off the opportunity for someone to sign him and give 2 first-round picks as compensation. And because someone said to me last year, oh, look, next year they won't use the franchise tag. My reaction was, and this was before the broken ankle, why wouldn't they? They've already used the highest possible level of the tag to keep him around. They are committed to this guy. The problem is they've always believed that there's going to be this lightning bolt where Dak Prescott says, you know what? I've built leverage and I've built leverage and I've built leverage. I'm just going to go ahead and give it up and do you guys a favor and sign a contract that doesn't reflect the leverage that I've accumulated.
When do we find out about the 17th regular season game?
I think it's tied to the TV contracts.
Now, I was told that
there was
this
a thought
morning
that maybe the TV contracts were being finalized so they could move some money around and bump up the salary cap. My understanding is they're trying to get the TV contracts done before they make it official with 17 games. And I saw a report from the Washington Post, 17 and 3 preseason games, which makes sense. You want to hold that 3rd preseason game. So the next move is 18 and 2. They've had 20 games forever. Back when in the 70s, I remember 6 preseason games and 14 regular season games. It was ridiculous. But I think 18 and 2 at some point down the road is where we're headed. They won't go 17 and 2. They'll go 17 and 3 and then 18 and 2.
Oh, boy. Yeah, I was told this morning it's all tied to TV dollars. Got to get the contracts done, and then everybody knows what they're going to make, and then we're going to have that 17th game.
More inventory, more stuff to bet on. I think they need to have more windows. Don't be surprised if there's some sort of a doubleheader package in the next Monday Night Football deal. More standalone games where people can bet on those games, especially as the technology improves to the point where what you see at home on your TV is happening at the exact same moment, so you can pick up the cell phone device and make a bet on whatever the next play is going to be.
When's J.J. Watt make his decision?
Well, I think that teams won't know what they can offer him until they know what the salary cap's going to be. And I think we're probably a week and a half away from figuring out what the cap's going to be. First, the teams have to figure out what they want it to be. Some want it to be lower, some want it to be higher, and then they have to work out the agreement with the union as to what it's going to be. But when he got his freedom 2 weeks ago, the first thing I thought of it, hey, he gets a 33-day head start to the open market. And then I thought about it, it's like nobody knows what the cap's going to be. You don't know what you can pay him. And the other side of it too is if you give that 5, 6, 7 million, whatever it is, to J.J. Watt, you may find out later that another team unexpectedly cut a guy to get under the cap. And you look at him and say, man, I could have spent that money on this guy instead. Because even though Watt, great player, Hall of Famer, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, he's 32 and he's had an injury history. There may be other guys out there when you take the name off the back of the jersey that teams will look at and say, I'd kind of rather have him.
We played the J.J. Watt game yesterday. A quick recap there, Paulie.
I went with he would play in Los Angeles for the Chargers of the Rams.
Fritzy went with the Cowboys. McLovin went with
Packers.
Seton.
Steelers.
I went with Buffalo.
I like Buffalo. I'm with you on Buffalo.
All right.
Buffalo.
All right. Well, that's
Every tweet from J.J. Watt, too, gets paper analyzed to see where it's like, we used to spin the record backwards. I buried Paul. Like, where's the clue? Where's the clue on the J.J. Watt Twitter page as to where he's going to go?
Thank you, Mike, as always. We appreciate your time.
All right, see you, Dan.
Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, a website, profootballtalk.com, Pro Football Talk Live.